Yetzer Hara, an evil inclination against something, you can't just wait for it to attack you and then try to figure out how you're going to deal with it. You have to know in advance how you're going to deal with this enemy, make a plan, and if you make a plan and you try, Hashem will give this enemy into your hands. You will win your Yetzer Hara. But if you just wait to respond to the enemy, you're not necessarily going to win, okay? Because you don't have a plan. So here, this is like a message for Elul, right? That you should have some kind of a plan of what is your personal enemy. Okay, is it laziness? Is it sadness? Is it no plan? Is it, what is it that is your enemy, right?
All of the above?
All of the above, pride, this, the other. How are you going to work on it this year and make it your mission? That's a difference. Make it your mission. If you have a mission statement and a mission, you're motivated. When you just say, well, what will I do if this happens? Well, I'll probably do that. But if it's no, this is my mission. I want to have an Ayin Tovah this year. I want to think good about other people. Or this is my mission. I want to act with zealousness. I want to act with more alacrity. This is my mission this year. Or my mission is to work against depression or to work against apathy or whatever it is. So I brought this in first because this was really, I asked to speak about Rabbi Beryl Wein because for me, it was a very big personal loss. I mean, I don't think I've cried that hard in a long time after I heard he passed away.
Wow.
And he was 91 years old. He grew up and he taught till the last moment. I heard him a month earlier giving his Parashat Shavua Shir. And the next thing I thought he was on vacation, for a month, going to see his relatives in America or something. And the next thing I knew, he passed away. And I was just like heartbroken.
Did you know him? Did you meet him?
No, I lived his history and a lot of his shiurim. I never met him personally. And I never heard him physically until Zoom very recently. But he shaped my view of Judaism. And he shaped my view of Rabbi Beryl Wein, and he was brilliant, and he was knowledgeable more than anybody else in almost any area of history, Judaism, Torah, etc., etc. He put it all together, but what was important about him mostly is that he had a mission. And Judy spoke about the story last week that Rabbi Herzog, when he was 11 years old, came with the story that he tried to take these 10,000 children out away from the Pope, away from the church, and because they were baptized, he couldn't get them out. They said, once you're baptized, you can't get them. And he was crying and crying and crying in Chicago in front of all these kids. And Rabbi Beryl Wein was so moved that somebody was crying so hard about 10,000 children that he doesn't know, whatever, but that we lost them to our nation. And then Rabbi Herzog said, and what are you going to do for the Jewish people? And what are you going to do to make up for these 10,000 Jews? Like, we've lost an entire generation. We lost 6 million Jews and 10,000 additional children that we could have maybe gotten, and we can't get them. Who are you going to be to make up each child? So like, go and have a family. Go and teach children, go teach other people, whatever you have to do. This, at 11 years old, this made a very big statement, a very big influence on his whole life. And he decided that this is his life, that he's going to do for the Jewish people. Like, that's what he's going to do. And the truth is, that's really all of our mission, is to do for the Jewish people. We were born to do for the Jewish people. And his grandfather, who grew up in the Lithuanian in Lithuania, whatever, with all the Lithuanian rabbis, he got a message from the Chafetz Chaim that he should speak to the Jewish people. This was his mission, to speak to the Jewish people, right? Like Daber El Bnei Israel, and he got this from his grandfather: speak to the Jewish people. Now, speak to the Jewish people. I mean, he was an orator, and he was a lecturer, and he was witty, and he was brilliant. And sometimes he was the most brilliant person in the room all the time, but he had humility. And he could accept from everybody else and listen to everybody else and don't feel better than anybody else. He had, even though he was so witty, that he still, like, he was his His students loved him like a father. He had a lot of students. I'm just saying what he was. He did so much because he had a mission. And I think that's the truth. They have a mission, not just we react to what's happening. We have a mission. We'll have much more energy to do a lot more. So he was also this is what he had all the time. He was also a Talmid Chacham, also a Rav of a shul, almost always. He was a Rav of a shul. And then he became a Rav in Eretz Yisrael, in a shul in Yerushalayim. Then he was a Rosh Yeshiva a lot of the time. He was a Rebbe also, and Yirei Shamayim. And then he was a historian, a lecturer, orator, wrote a lot of books on Torah, on Pirkei Avos, what? And on history, okay? I know him from the history, okay? But he doesn't call himself historian. But he was really a Talmid Chacham, and he was a Rebbe. Except he always taught Torah to yeshiva students for years and years, and a Rav in a shul, and 6 shiurim HaShabbos. Okay, he didn't stop. Yes, he didn't stop. He didn't stop giving shiurim. He didn't stop doing. There was like every moment he was writing, and like even I said, 90 years old. I kept looking to see like, was he still as bright? Was his memory still as good? And it was. He was amazing. It was like he couldn't see anymore. I didn't notice. I was like looking at him, and he didn't blink. And I was like, how come he's not blinking? Because he was almost blind or something like that. He still continued to give shiurim on such a high level. It was just amazing because this was his mission, is to, after the Holocaust, where people were broken, and Judaism in America was very low level. He went to public school with a Novominsker Rebbitzin, like they were in the same class. My mother-in-law, I think, was a year above them. In Chicago, like in the same school, I think, the 1 year above them.
They didn't have Jewish schools.
They didn't have Jewish schools. He did get taken out at 11, 12-year-olds to go to yeshiva with 16-year-olds, okay, because his parents were very frum, whatever, and they did that. It was amazing. He said he was connected to all his rebbeim, like to the Lithuanian rabbis from before. He made contact with the Satmar Rebbe, with the Panovitcher Rebbe. He had from all, like he was in Miami. And in Miami, they also often came for the winter, all the Rabbanim for a little bit of a vacation. And he became close to all of them. They considered him of high stature. He got amazing hashkafa. And he says about himself, like the story, but I forgot which Rav, that said, I saw Rabbi Meir from the back. And therefore, I'm a totally different person because I saw Rabbi Meir from the back. So he says, I saw these people like they were the back or the end of the Holocaust, pre-Holocaust Torah. Just seeing them changed him.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for us to know, just seeing somebody from a previous generation, just hearing them for a minute. And I want to just read what he said about himself. It says, because he doesn't consider himself a historian. He read a lot of history, and he knew a lot of history about everything, every world historian thing. But he always made world history an understanding that it is just the backdrop for Jewish history. Whatever's happening, whatever happens to a Vietnam vet, whatever happens to Japan, whatever happens to this, it's all a backdrop for what's happening to the Jewish people. And I just want to give, by the way, these are his series, they're huge, but I want to say, I never loved history. I didn't hate it, but I never loved history until Rabbi Wein. I now love history. I won't pick up somebody else's book though, but Rabbi Wein's books, and he's still coming out with a couple of them. They're still being written. But Triumph of Survival, there's like a 3-set trilogy here. But this is really what it means. He really wanted to teach the Jewish people that we have hope and optimism, and we have survival abilities and survival connections with the kadosh Baruch Hu. And this is what he says. I'm sorry I don't read so well, but it's a little bit long, but it has truly been noted that history is too important to be left to the historians. He's very witty, but every wit that he has musar in it. Okay, everything that he says, he thinks is witty, it has musar in it. Okay, I just have to say that it was very funny because last year they made a 90th birthday party. I watched this. They gave him 5 hours of eulogy while he was still alive. And he said, I'm very happy to hear this while I'm still vertical, he said last year, But he did say, he said, he said, and I would really like to thank, and we thought he was going to like thank all the people, who just went on and on about it. He said, I would really like to thank the American National whatever for naming a hurricane after me, because last year was called Hurricane Beryl. Yeah, so it was his self-effacement, that I'm not that great like you're trying to make it. I have a mission. And that's what I'm thinking about. It's for Hashem. It's for the Jewish people. It's not for me to be famous and for me to be known as a this and that. I'm doing it because I have a mission for Hashem, for the Jewish people. That's what he says here, okay? So this is certainly true in the case of Jewish history. Jewish history as a discipline and Jewish history books in general did not come into vogue until the late 19th century. Jewish historiography, therefore, has been almost exclusively the product of secular Jews who held a strong bias against Torah Judaism. Okay, thus the irony of most Jewish history texts is that they have been written with condescension, if not hostility. Condescending, right? Thus, the irony of most Jewish history texts is that they have been written with condescension, if not hostility, to the basic beliefs and the true heroes of the Jewish history. Okay, if it would not be an exaggeration to say that many books on Jewish history by non-Jews have been more insightful, sensitive, and sympathetic to the subject matter than those written by objective-minded secular Jews. Thus, almost by default, a great deal of current Jewish history books, articles, and texts are not truly Jewish and are barely accurate history. I am not a historian nor the son of a historian. I've, however, spent years reading, researching, writing, and lecturing about the Jewish people and their place in the world. All authors write from a personal bias. Mine is that I am an Orthodox Jew who believes in the divinity of Jewish tradition and the uniqueness of the people of Israel. There exists within the Jewish people a collective memory of its history. This collective memory operates independently of research materials, books, and other acceptable historical evidence. One benefit of being an Orthodox Jew is having access to this memory bank of events, insights, worldviews, and life-giving legends. My education in the yeshiva, my good fortune in knowing and conversing with some of the last great Eastern European rabbis, and my family tradition and its members have combined to allow me a glimpse of this collective memory treasure of Israel. And he puts that into all of his history. It's always from a perspective of an Orthodox Jew who believes in the divinity of history and that nothing is by chance in his history, okay? And it says here, and what it was meant for him to speak to the Jewish people. For Rabbi Wein, that meant, this is by Jonathan Rosenblum. For Rabbi Wein, that meant make them proud of being part of the Jewish people. Okay, by history, by the way, if you read the history, you become more and more proud of the Jewish people, of what we went through, what we endured, how we maintained our tradition, how sometimes we lost our tradition and why, what was so difficult about that, how it affected us today, how Shabtai Tzvi, for example, affected how we look today at Mashiach. There's so many things that what we are learning, how we're learning, or what we're not learning was affected by history, okay? So it says that meant to make them proud of being part of the Jewish people, provide them with framework for viewing the present in the context not only of the past, but of the future. So everything was a sweep of history, also past, also present, also future, how to connect all of the dots, okay? And he always said, people said, so what do you say about October 7th? So he said, we can't really say until a few more years go by and we see what was the effect. Like a lot of us wish that October 7th would have been that everybody changed their view on loving each other. And we see that in the beginning it was like that. And afterwards it's sort of like going back to sort of where it was, right? So we have to have a longer view of it, okay? And he says here, but of the future, show them the divine providence that has always guided our people. And even when it was obscure, and above all, make them feel that they too have a unique role to play in making that history and are not just bystanders. And I think that's really important that we all be aware that each one of us is making history. We're not just bystanders in this history. We're not just living our own life. We are part of a history. You could say you're part of the history of Tzfat. You're part of the history of keeping mitzvos in Eretz Yisrael, of strengthening the land. Okay, he always tried to convince everybody to move to Eretz Yisrael. Tried to convince his family. Tried to convince everybody, and he moved to Eretz Yisrael, and he lived here for the last 30 years or something like that.
He gave a shiur a few years ago. He asked all his yeshiva bookers to get on the shiur, and he said that the time has come when Jews must leave Israel and
Leave America.
leave America, and that all the men. He says this is the time because you're all newly married, you're starting your families. He said he encouraged all the men to go and start looking where they want to live and what kind of work they want to do, come back and make Aliyah. He says there is no more place for Jews in America. Leave.
And he predicted that one day, and this is now happening, that in America they'll tell us what to study in our yeshivas. They'll tell us what we can and cannot learn. And he said it years earlier before it actually started happening. You know, because of the sweep of history.
He also had a compassion for individual people, that he wasn't all about the big stuff and the big picture. He had this ability to just, he had a heart that was like as gold as the sun. And I only got to see him one time, but it really affected me. And yes, I have all three of his books, and I became a history teacher.
Wow.
No, it was partly and he provided the Torah Masorah, because you tried to teach English or try to teach history, there was nothing. I would go into a classroom and the kids could say Rabbi Akiva and Rashi are contemporaries, right? You know.
Right.
He gave us the ability to create textbooks, and we created textual material out of his research, and he just gave it.
And he loved every human being.
He was so.
He really did love it. He pushed every person to be his best. And there's a question that everybody should ask themselves, you know, is what can I do to help the Jewish people draw closer to the light of Torah and mitzvos? On an individual basis, it doesn't have to be on a, you know, on a big basis, like on an individual basis. But I just wonder, one of the beautiful stories is everybody cried. You know, sometimes you have something, they just appreciate someone and they appreciate him on a very logical kind of level. But everybody there was crying. His sons-in-law were crying. His, you know, sons were crying. His students were crying. And he was remarried. I don't know at what age. He was remarried to somebody who had a family already. And he became very, very close to his wife's children and wife's grandchildren. He was zany for everybody. After she passed away, and he was already living in Eretz Yisrael, and he was not a youngster anymore, he went to all of their simchas.
Wow.
He had also a large family from his side. They have all a lot of simchas and great-grandchildren and whatever. But he went to all their simchas. They were his family. He looked at everybody as being a close relationship. It wasn't just, oh, I was married to her, so that was the time that I was married to her. Now I don't have those obligations anymore, except for saying Happy Rosh Hashanah or something. You know, he went. It was not easy. He was their family. They were his family. His students were his family. He loved everybody, but he saw every Jew as a potential. Every Jew, no matter where they were holding, was a pure, because he got that from the rabbis who said, there's a Jew left. There's a Jew left, like, wow, there's a Jew left in this world, you know? And we thank God we've grown up in like semi-peace for a while, you know, whatever, like, okay, so they're Jewish, like, okay, you know, but no. Every Jew, we have to get back to that feeling that every Jew is so, so, so important, that we have to judge them favorably, that we have to love them even if they're having a hard time and acting not so nicely, that they're pure inside, that there's a lot in them. And if we believe in them, Bezrat Hashem, they'll be better. They'll be more, but every Jew is here, they're part of a mission. You know, they're a part of a mission to make us better, give us patience to deal with them, or for their own mission, whatever it may be. But we're all here, and I really highly suggest to start reading his books. You'll love them, or his listen to his shiurim, which are always fascinating. They're always fun, and they're always give information. You always feel closer to the Jewish people and understanding Hashem's destiny for us. Like he's giving, there's a reason why we went through this gullus and that gullus. We got this out of here. We got this out of there. It wasn't just stam. We were thrown into all these countries, and there's things that happened over there. There's ways that we grew. There's ways that we fell, but we are eternal people. And you have that hope from his history books. You have the hope that we are an eternal people, and we're going to make it. Like and he said, now we're going to make it, and we're going to do it, and it's going to be, and because of that view of the entire history and the future and the Torah, and knowing that Hashem's promise for us. So,
Amen. Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Liiana. That's really wise.
You're so convincing. I want to.
you have
Want to
to
start learning it?
You have to. You have to. It's fascinating.
When you learn his stuff, it's very easy to feel like an oppressed people. Guess what? Right? Like, why are the Jews hated victims? When you read his stuff and you get the sense of the sweep of Jewish history, you get the sense of the majesty of the Jewish people, the special status of the Jewish, and he gives that to you through his writing and through his shiurim. It's quite something. Thank you. So thank you very much.
This one is Triumph of Survival. There are all kinds of names.
There's many.
Triumph of Survival. There's
Triumph.
the Herald of Destiny.
There's like three volumes like this.
Where can you buy it?
You can ask at the Jewish at Torah Gems.
Okay, we're gonna go on to our study of the laws of Bein Adam L'Chavero. Do a little shortened version. And no problem. This was very, very worthwhile. I appreciate it very much. Okay, so we learned last time, right, that the mitzvos that govern our interaction with people, it's v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, which we said could either mean that you actually have this feeling of love and concern for people, or it means that you actually have to do things for people. Okay, and the other mitzvah is the halachta b'drachav, to go in God's ways, which could either mean that you have to work to improve your midos and think about what you need to do to grow closer to Hashem, or it also means that you have to do stuff. You have to take it upon yourself to physically, to help people in whatever way that you possibly can do. So who's obligated in this? Everybody. Everybody has this responsibility, old, young, you're poor, you still have a responsibility to, maybe you can't give tzedakah the way that you want, but you do have to help people in whatever way that you can. You're a child, actually a child has to be taught from a very young age that to inculcate that into that thinking that they have to, that they have responsibilities to the Jewish people. And it's a pretty central idea. I mean, we hear it quite a bit in Torah, right? Everybody knows Rabbi Akiva called it V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha is a klal gadol b'Yisrael. There's a debate in the Gemara. What's the most important principle in Judaism? What's the most important thing that we have to? According to Rabbi Akiva, this was it. To love your fellow Jew was essential. And Hillel then turned it around. He expanded it by saying that you should not do something that you find hateful to yourself, you should not do to other people. So that even expands it a bit. You have to. So if you're a person who I have a thick skin. I do have a thick skin, and it doesn't bother me if people make jokes about me that much, or it doesn't bother me if people correct me, but other people might. We have to work to try and be sensitive. I mean, that's a skill. That's part of this mitzvah, to develop a skill to try and understand what's in somebody's head. How did they feel? How does that make them feel differently than you? We're all kind of locked into, I see things this way. Don't you see things this way? The same way, no, you have to try and understand how people are feeling, and to try and get into their head and respond to them in that way. So the Rambam says that the mitzvah of Yehavta l'recha kamocha has an obligation to love every Jew as yourself. And in practice, that means that you have to be concerned about their personal welfare, their finances, their spirituality, and you have to actually physically do things to help them. You have to physically, you hear somebody, you see this on on different chats on WhatsApp, somebody's sick, could you sign up to make food? Yes. If you can, that might not be your mitzvah, but if you have the capability of doing something like that, yes, you should sign up to give someone, you can't make food, pick it up and deliver it. There's just unending examples of things that we can do. And that's who Jews are. We're a kind people, and we're a people who's concerned with other people. And it also means getting past any kind of jealousy that you might feel because someone is doing better. Am I jealous because, you have a beautiful family with, 8 kids and 47 grandchildren? And, I'm happy that that's what you have. I'm happy that you have the joy and the pleasure of being with grandchildren, and the joy and the pleasure of, having a beautiful home, or the joy and the pleasure of having the ability to give tzedakah, or what. In my heart, I don't feel any jealousy to you. If I love you, it's like, you see your kid give a shiur or something. You're jealous? No, you're not going to be jealous of your kid. You're happy. Well, that's the relationship that you have with every Jew. It's not just
But just because you love someone doesn't mean you're jealous.
okay.
I wish you would cancel that out. I wish that would happen, but it does happen also.
Okay.
Right?
All right, but it's definitely something to work.
Yeah.
With, right? Like, we all have
You have compassion for yourself when that happens, when
Yeah.
that feeling comes over you, like, I wish I had, But now, then, Judy, tell us your secret.
Tell my secret.
Yeah.
It was a gift, really. I don't think I did anything too. I think Hashem gave me this extra dose of Ahavas Yisrael, and so I claim no credit for.
But you let it happen.
Well, I always say, I made a decision. Like I always worked in America. I always worked in Jewish things, and so that I get. I didn't go to work for an advertising company. I made a decision to stay and work in Jewish organizations that do Jewish things my whole life. Didn't go for the big.
So I did. So you were.
Yeah, I
kind of
love being
talent.
You end up with a greater level.
All right. Anyways. Okay. Now we don't have to. Okay. So. Okay. So. All right. You know what? I think I'm just gonna stop here. You like this color? We got a little color. Stop. Oh.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you very much. Okay.
It doesn't work for compliments.
Right. There you go. There you go. Right.
Don't show.
Okay. So a few announcements. Stop.